Hey, so this video is a bit of a interjection between the other normal devlog videos. It just sort of dawned on me that we were 2 videos deep and I have yet to actually explain what the idea of the game is. So I have for a very long time been a big fan of strategy games, specifically RTS games, real-time strategy games. And namely games like Command and Conquer Generals and its expansion Zero Hour, which I consider to be my personal favorites, as well as the other entries in the series, games like Impossible Creatures, Active Aggression, and I have dabbled in StarCraft. But despite all of my grand designs over the years, I needed something that was sort of a reasonable first step into learning how I could possibly get to making a game of similar design. And that is where this project comes in. I'm calling it Project Frontlines. And the idea was to replicate a kind of gameplay that I used to cheese out in Command and Conquer Generals, which is where you just use a very limited set of units and try to focus on keeping them alive to achieve a goal rather than just sort of throwing them at the enemy, and whoever, quote, trades efficiently wins. For this go, I wanted to focus on a game that was slower paced, because I feel like that would be easier to design. I also feel like making it slower paced allows me to make it a PvE experience. So you face an enemy AI rather than another player. Something like co-op isn't off the table, but I will count that as a stretch goal. So the core kind of game loop that I'm going for here is something that borrows some roguelike elements, in the sense that it is a single player PvE experience that has randomization to shake up the gameplay experience. Elements like the terrain of the map will be mildly generated, enemy positions will be somewhat generated, and objectives are generated. So on any given mission, you may have different terrain, different enemy positions, different types of enemies at the enemy positions, different objectives in different places. Hopefully that's enough to keep the gameplay fresh. You yourself, unlike a traditional RTS, at least as far as the Command, Conquer, and StarCraft type of games go, would start with a base that has, deployments and logistics and so on and so forth. Resources are gathered by capturing resource points around the map, somewhat similar to Company of Heroes. And you use those resources on upgrades. You don't actually use the resources on getting units because you start with a reasonable force and have extra deployments you can use during a match to either reinforce or replace units you have. This, I'm hoping, is the backbone of trying not to just throw your enemy all your units as a giant body wall. Since you have a limited amount, you kind of have to take care of them. The other factor is those resources that you're gathering you use for upgrades, which are pretty essential for making your units better. And when a unit dies, it takes its upgrades with it. I'm still hashing out that particular mechanic, but that's sort of the essence. And the final element is logistics. Now, I don't want to go crazy 4X like logistical strategy here, but in essence, you have logistics vehicles, which are healers, and upgrade delivery. So if you have units out in the field, they don't just magically get whatever upgrades you buy. You have to bring upgrades to them or bring them back to base to get upgraded. Similarly with healing, you have a limited number of logistics vehicles and you have to make sure that they are in a position that is A, defended, and B, readily accessible to your units that might be engaging in combat, because they might have to retreat to a logistics point and get healed up. I'm also considering the idea of units being in squads when you receive them. So rather than telling an individual tank or an individual soldier to go somewhere, you tell a squad of soldiers or a group of tanks. But the scale and scope would still be similar to what you'd expect from a traditional RTS game, like a Command and Conquer game, as far as maybe map size and camera height. Other than that, I haven't thought too hard about it. I've learned that if you put a little too much gas in the tank of your idea, you kind of just burn it inefficiently when you get to actually making it. So I've established a base idea. I know my influences, and I'm just going from here. I have an idea of the pieces that I need to get a prototype made, and that will be the point where I decide whether this is actually a fun concept or really boring and slow. And that is the journey that I am dragging you all along with me. So thanks for watching. Hopefully that gets you up to speed on where my head is at, because really that's about as much as I've thought about the idea. And I will see you in the next one. Take care.